We just finished the very first week of NFL football in 2022, and we had a lot of shocking surprises. If you're in a survivor pool, a lot of the teams got knocked out already. If you're a Broncos fan, you're furious. If you're a Trey Lance fan, it's so good. It's so good. Victory laps all day. Anyways, this is myself and Erik Beimfohr are going to break down week one, what it means for football as a whole, and what it means for best ball going forward. What are your takeaways? What are our takeaways? Let's do it. Aren't you worried, Erik? Aren't you worried about your Trey Lance shares?
I'm still worried about everything. I drafted all these wide receivers that scored 1 million points, and I can't help but be maybe my brain is ruined at maybe it's definitely ruined. My brain feels ruined from just all the football we've talked forever that I draft a lot of zero running back teams, even like hero running back teams. The structures that we draft a lot, and if you listen to this show, you probably draft a lot, are the teams that we talk about winning over the course of the season, like getting better as the season goes. And my highest scoring teams are my RB1 is a 10th round pick, because the week one was so crazy and the wide receivers were so good, but yet it was a monsoon. I'm holding out hope. Trey Lance and Justin Fields, both of them, those are my kind of guys to draft. Trash, absolute stone cold trash. And there's there's plenty of things, to be worried about. I did want to hit the survivor thing really fast because I have a home survivor league, a very long running dynasty league that I'm in, the same league. So it's only 12 guys, but the league does a survivor coinciding with the dynasty league. Everybody enters. We're heading into last night. There were only 2 remaining teams. And me and one other guy had the Broncos. I took the Broncos in Survivor. And 2 people took the Ravens. Everyone else took the Colts or the Titans. So ties lose in this. Yep. I don't know if that's the normal rule in Survivor. I'm not a Survivor expert, but I'm sitting there it was one of my buddies. We both have the Broncos. We're about to in 1 week we're gonna crush everybody in Survivor, and then Russ loses to the Seahawks. And honestly, he put up numbers, but I thought he played like shit. And it just that was a great culmination of week one, the anarchy of week one, you know what I mean? So I'm excited. I'm excited to talk, even though it's just total chaos, and I don't even really know where I stand on how everything's going so far.
So I do a survivor pool with 3 other friends, and it's $100 buy-in, and we each get 2 teams. Me and my 3 friends, so we each pick 2 every week. And this pool is so big that there is a total of 4,260 entries. So we're talking $400,000 is up top on this. And over half the field was eliminated. In fact, almost 75% of the field is gone. There's 1,659 people remaining and 2,616 people eliminated. Because the most picked team was the Ravens, but Colts, Titans, Niners, Broncos, Bengals were the next, and we only survived with 3 of our 8 entries. So that just shows you, to me, that shows you how crazy week one was as a whole. The Bengals game was absolutely bonkers. I was losing my mind on the couch. How they don't challenge that Chase touchdown is the most mind-boggling moment of my entire existence. I'm just sitting there. I'm oh, it's a touchdown. They're going to reverse this. And then Joe Mixon waddles his way to the line of scrimmage and doesn't score. And I just sit there and I almost puke. So there's a lot to overreact on what happened this week. I'm kind of kidding about the Trey Lance thing. I said it in Discord. He was literally playing in a lake. So I take all of that game with a grain of salt right now.
Yeah.
It's going to be the win game from the Bills Patriots last year. Almost. You just toss that out because it's not comparable to anything else. So to me, I'm not overreacting to that just yet. There are some things that I am overreacting to. And I was driving home today and I kind of had two epiphanies in relation to best ball. I want to start this off with like a best ball take as a overreaction best ball take. And I was thinking about Saquon Barkley, right? And I started thinking about you and Pete's team from last year because I'm like, what would be the proper play? And I know it's only been 1 week, but the way you guys played it last year with their Devontae Adams pick as the number 2 overall, I think we could have done that this year with Saquon, as we were already rising him up through the rounds. And at this point, what's another 6 picks or whatever? So to get a unique Saquon team, you could have picked him at the 6th spot instead of the 12, 13, 14 spot and gotten a unique version of a Saquon Barkley team by taking him in the 1st round. So I think I want to be more cognizant of that for next year, where I'm looking at guys that have that either legendary wide receiver upside or legendary running back upside. And to me, he was the only one around that range that actually had it, right?
100%.
So that's one thing I want to be cognizant of. And I think, to be fair, I think some people in our Discord was doing it. If I recall, it might have been like I Was Inverted was doing that.
And Hacker probably has one. Hacker, shout out. His name is Hacker, so he stays. He's sleuthing around the internet. He doesn't pop up all the time and doesn't make all of his takes known. But I know for a fact he probably has more Saquon than anybody in the entire industry. He took a massive stand. He was doing exactly what you said, getting unique combinations with Saquon. That was the guy that he believed. And we talked a little bit about this in one of the recent shows that we had, where I drafted so much 3rd round Saquon that I kind of started to back off. I also did admittedly get a little bit squeamish about the Giants, and I'm still like a smidge squeamish about the Giants.
Yeah.
But so I pulled this up because Saquon was a great reference point to what you were talking about in the legendary upside. It's 1 week again, and some of this is skewed. Like Fournette got pulled at the end, whether it was injury or blowout. I'm trying to think. There was a couple other guys that kind of got pulled. Najee got hurt, right? So some of it is a little bit skewed. But if you go look at snap rate, Saquon was the highest of all. This is the top 15 running backs by ADP in best ball. Saquon was the highest snap percentage. He was the highest. So I bucketed opportunities, which is targets plus carries. He's the highest in terms of opportunities, except for Joe Mixon in his backfield. But Joe Mixon got like 10 million carries because they couldn't protect Joe Burrow again, even though they upgraded their offensive line. And then he was what I think is kind of not most important, but near the top of importance, all the pass work. Saquon was all the pass work. So it's him, CMC, and Dalvin were the only guys that got all of the pass work in their backfield. So like the Mixon thing is a little bit skewed because he got all the carries. So his opportunity looks really good. But then you look in the 3rd column and he only got 64% of the so P. Ryan is still playing 3rd downs. Everything that we knew about Joe Mixon is still true. He is the workhorse in volume, but he doesn't play 3rd downs. He's not going to play, like the 2-minute drill and those kinds of things. Whereas Saquon, he ceded 5 carries to Matt Breida, and that was it. Right. Everything else was all Saquon. Yes, exactly. Like
he'd break a 60-yard run and be like, I gotta take a minute here.
That was somebody said something the other day, and it was like, oh my God, so and so what they took him out. I think it actually might have been last night. Javonte like catches like 3 balls in a row and has like a 12-yard carry, and then they get inside the 20, and Melvin comes in, and people are like, well, Melvin's the goal line back or whatever, it's like, oh, they're why are they taking Javonte? I'm like, he is human. Like this isn't Madden. Like these guys are human. These guys are humans. Like the dude just have you played football and touched the ball 4 times in a row and run like 60 yards in 2 minutes? Yeah. I mean, they do get tired. So there's a little nuance obviously to that, but my kind of biggest takeaway from like this I was doing some different studies and stuff, and Saquon, to your point, was very much stuck out to me. I still have a little bit of squeamishness about the Giants, but I mean, he certainly proved that he was underpriced even at the end of the year at the, early second round. And like we're taking, I mean, some of the guys going ahead of him still at the end of the draft season were terrible. And so I totally agree on your Saquon take.
And part of that too is if a guy's already a third rounder and we move him to early second, late first, and then we're like, oh, well, I can't take him much earlier because he was going in the third round. I think like with how great of a group of players that is early, that it's still fine because you're still getting a unique combination of 3 great players, most likely, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where it's different where a guy moves from like the 12th round to the 4th round might be a little bit different. And I'd have to think about that a little bit more. But I think that's one of the things that I'm really like kind of focusing on. And just to wrap up Saquon, he took that, like, I think it was a check down pass and he went up the sideline. And as I was watching it, I'm like, holy shit, this guy's back. Like he looked explosive again. I don't remember him looking explosive last year once. So like on that run, I was like, okay, this dude's back. Like even if they suck and they struggle, he's going to have explosive games throughout the year, no matter what. So,
and the big thing for me with that is like, we take Christian McCaffrey 101 or 102 or 103 or whatever, and the Panthers stink. Yeah. No one ever says we're taking Christian McCaffrey because the Panthers are going to be an awesome offense. It's the same shit as the Giants. Yeah. What's the difference? Like, what is the difference? I mean, DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson, I guess, are better than the wide receivers for the Giants, but also the coaching is better. Brian Daboll is a smarter coach than Matt Rule and what's his face from the old Giants. There's to put a bow on the Saquon. I think it was a run on that long one. But he was also very clear. Yeah. He was also very clearly the focal point of the offense. And Brian Daboll. So Daniel Jones only threw 21 passes, and Saquon had 18 carries and 7 targets or something like that. And so like they didn't really run that many offensive plays. And it was him. It was all him. It was basically what CMC used to be sometimes, where we would get like, he has 12 targets and 24 carries or whatever, and they ran 60 plays. Like it was Saquon again. And so again, week 1, it is what it is. But I think a lot of the sentiment of what we thought Saquon might be coming into the year very much so proved true.
Right. The other thing I thought about is Davante Adams, and not just Davante Adams himself, but we saw this wide receiver carousel this year between trades and signings, and mostly trades, right? You had the Tyreek trade, you had the Devontae trade. We know all the AJ Brown trade. And if that continues in the future, where hypothetically, I don't think this is going to happen, but just as a hypothetical, say Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase get traded, when they're due for their contract, right? And we used to be like, well, a receiver going to a new team, it's hard for them to adapt and they don't do well that first year and blah, 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 blah. I think that's out the window. If it's a superstar wide receiver, it's just wheels up for that wide receiver. We were worried about Davante Adams more so than, Tyreek as well. We were worried about both of those guys. Mm-hmm. But I wrote it on Twitter. Davante Adams is just Davante Adams. He's just that dude, right? Like, so if a guy goes to another team, as long as they're not completely abysmal and they don't even, they have the worst quarterback of all time. But if they're going to a decent situation, it's wheels up. You just take them like you would normally take them. Is the way that
it's totally sampling bias, right? The old thought process around wide receivers moving teams. It was like, well, for such a long time, superstar wide receivers didn't move teams.
Right.
When name a time when Stephon Diggs and Devontae Adams and Tyreek Hill, and these are top 5 for sure, top 10, probably top 5 wide receivers in the NFL. You cannot compare, I can't think of an Marvin Jones or whatever,
Right.
to moving teams, to Devontae Adams moving teams. And elite football players are elite football players.
Right.
It may get muddied up in the middle. Kenny Golladay is like people might say, well, what about Kenny? Kenny Golladay is so far from elite and was always so far from elite. He might just be dust now because he's he's a little older and maybe injuries have broken Kenny Golladay, but he was never Devontae Adams and Tyreek Hill and these guys. And I was going to share real quick because it's funny you brought up Devontae. And if we look at, so this is just like wide receiver, just a bunch of wide receiver data from week 1. Obviously, you see one game played. Devontae Adams had 17 targets for a 48.6% target share on the new team. We were worried about him maintaining his target share from the Packers. It might be higher. We might have done the wrong shit. Like he we might have been like thinking the exact opposite of what we should have been thinking. Look at the 3 target share leaders.
Right.
This is sorted by target share.
Devontae Adams, the 3 that changed teams. Yeah.
AJ Brown and Tyreek Hill. I mean, so like these new teams who are also subsequently good offenses, say whatever you want about the Dolphins, they're not a bottom of the barrel offense. I mean, Mike McDaniel knows what Mike McDaniel also came out and said, like, when they said Tyreek was available, he went to the GM and was like, if you don't fucking trade for him, like, I'm gonna be pissed. They know how to use these guys.
Right.
These teams are smart. They know that, when you get Devontae Adams, AJ Brown, Tyreek Hill, you just use them. And so
even lesser guys like Christian Kirk was down like right at the top 11, I think, on that chart you just
he's
showed.
Near the top. Yep.
Of wide receivers, he's top 10 because Saquon's the other one that snuck in there.
Yeah. Saquon is hilariously near the top of target share leaders.
Right.
But so Christian Kirk is what is that? 10th? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah.
Yeah. So the whole moving teams thing is gone. The NFL is not like the NFL was. This isn't Alvin Harper.
Jarvis Landry is also on here. It's literally like all wide receivers that move teams.
Right. Or superstars.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Right.
So it's not the old NFL where Alvin Harper went from the Dallas Cowboys to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and then nobody ever heard from him ever again in his entire life and couldn't be a number 1. This is stars moving and remaining as stars in the NFL at their peak age as well. Like,
right.
AJ Brown is in the prime of his career and he's a goddamn man from what we saw on Sunday. It's unbelievable to watch what these guys are doing as they move teams. So those were my 2 big takeaways this week. I know like week 1 can be overreaction, but I don't think that's an overreaction. I think those are 2 things that I can take going forward for next year. So last year for me was the whole, if I want to get 2 guys from the 5th round, make sure that I grab one in the 4th round. And I don't care. I don't think I'm giving up that much for that. So this year going forward, it's going to be targeting guys that are moving teams because I think that sentiment's going to remain for the general public, probably.
Yeah.
And I don't know if anyone moves like to that extent next year, but I'm just saying if it does happen, just to know, to be cognizant of it, that they're probably being underdrafted and it's okay to grab them. We should have been grabbing Devontae at the 6th spot sometimes, right? Like we should have been looking at grabbing him there. Maybe we should have even been mixing him in above, like, I know this is going to be blasphemy, but in the Cup, Jefferson, Chase range, because he's with them. So if you took Devontae occasionally at the 3 spot or the 4 spot, now you're already getting different variations of that Devontae Adams teams than most people have. So those are things that we need to be cognizant of going forward.
Definitely. And I think it's a great representation of, again, we if you're in our little bubble, if you're watching this, if and Rob and I and some of the people that we listen to and talk to approach the game a lot this way. But I think something that I felt fairly clearly from week one. I've always felt this and felt it going into the season, but it's just like, again, good football players are good football players. So like take last night, Devontae Adams is definitely one of the best examples. All those wide receivers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Changing teams is like AJ Brown's one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. So is Tyreek Hill. So is Devontae Adams. If you're worried, aren't you worried? If you're worried about them in this new situation, like you should just trust in the talent. And that's actually something I feel, knock on wood, that at the end of the year, I actually corrected. I wasn't taking a lot of Tyreek. I was like above market on AJ Brown, but not crazy, not like to a crazy extent. And it was just kind of like you said, with an epiphany, the light bulb goes off. And I'm like, I don't really have any strong takes at this 2-3 turn or whatever, or after the top 5 in Devontae's range. After that top 5, it's like I don't have strong I'm taking more Stephon Diggs, but like what is the difference really? And so I corrected it. I got to like 14-15% of I'm thinking in BBM of Stephon Diggs and Devontae Adams both. And then at the 2-3 turn, I just it was basically for me AJ Brown, Tyreek Hill, Stephon Diggs. If they weren't there, or Stephon Diggs, Kyle Pitts, if they weren't there, I was just whoever the best available wide receiver was. But I was like, I'm just going to take, these guys are superstars. Like if it doesn't work, at least I know I took a superstar. They can still make something happen. You know what I mean? But if I take a guy, no offense to Mike Evans, if I take Mike Evans, it's like, he's a good football player, but like Mike Evans is not Tyreek Hill and AJ Brown. If I'm taking him just because like I feel uncomfortable about the Dolphins, I don't know. I think that was something the market gets wrong a little bit here and there. And so the other thing I was going to say, kind of piggybacking on that, following up to that, is these passing games with all there's so many good at wide receivers in the NFL. I love Saquon. I love Swift was good. JT obviously is just JT, but these robust running back starts are like fucking dead to me. The ones I even drafted, even the ones that are like doing well, I'm like mad at myself for ever doing it. Like it's zero and hero running back with how, not only how good the wide receivers are at the top, as we saw, but how efficient we've become at wide receiver. Like when we pulled up that list, I'll just pull it up again. When we pull up that list, show me someone on here that like, this is just targets too. This isn't even like production. DPJ, I guess, is a surprise. Who else is Robbie? But even then, Robbie was like, I don't know. Are you that surprised? They don't have anybody else.
It could be a fluky Robbie Anderson game, right?
But it's all the superstars, right? Go look at. We'll just do Whopper for shits and gigs. Again, look at the top. AJ Brown, Devontae Adams, Justin Jefferson, Brandon Cooks, Cooper Kupp, Tyreek Hill, Deontay Johnson. Nobody was drafting Richie James anyway. It's the superstars.
Right.
So draft the superstar wide receivers. And then if we went to, if we go to running back and just look at not receiving production, I guess this is going to be just receiving production. But if I were to go look at like just fantasy points, yes, JT, Saquon, et cetera, are kind of in their own little mini tier there. No one's saying don't take them, but don't take them and Najee and all these other guys. It's like, get your superstar wide receivers. If you want to dip your toes into one of these elite high upside running backs, do it. But then go, because you can get Dontrell Hilliard and you can get Darrell Henderson and you can get so many guys. Tymont's already hurt. The Patriots guys are going to be better now. Like there's just so many later round running backs that can match the Najees and they might match Eckler. Eckler didn't even play 50% of the snaps or get 50% of the touches. It's just so thin at the top with running back that I'm like I said, I'm like almost mad that any of the like teams I see with multiple early round running backs, I feel worse about.
So Rob in the chat says, I don't know. I'm happy with my Adams at 12 or later. It's tough to put him above the other 4. Rodgers has made wide receivers in the past. Evans before Adams was a mistake. I'm not saying that you have to take him over those other 4 every time. I'm saying a mix. And to go to Erik's point, I think next year I'll be taking bigger stands in the first round where I think a lot of us hit FOMO still. Like we don't want to miss out on, you know, what if it is a big year for Dalvin Cook? What if it is a big year for Derrick Henry? And it's like, I was doing this a little bit with Chase, but if I can just take stands on 6 of the top 12 guys and double to like almost double and a half the field on those 6 guys, you know what? That's probably what I'm going to do next year. And I'll have 0% Derrick Henry. I'll have 0% Dalvin Cook, Najee Harris, like those guys that I didn't really like to begin with. And I'll just get all my unique combinations for the other guys that other people aren't going to have, or there's less of going forward. Also, yeah, so like that's the stuff I'm looking at. Like, what can make me better next year? Where do I want to improve my particular game? What do I think is going to be improvements?
I kind of think I would like to do what you did. I did a little bit of what you just discussed, but I would like to do it better. Basically, I would like to fine tune it exactly like you said. So you see, this is just BBM again. It's easiest to look at BBM, but so I was when I got the 101. I'm taking JT, right, and like you said, these top 5 guys, I'm at the field or above because that's just how it works with the top 5 guys. After that, then I did do Kelsey, Diggs, Devontae, more. Like I wasn't. You see Eckler 1%, right? Najee 2%. This is obviously ordered by the spy. I guess I can just do ADP. By ADP, so 3% Derrick Henry. Also, I'm so mad. That's like 99.9% auto drafts, and just so triggering when you auto draft the guy that you absolutely did not want. And those, if I could take that 3% and put it onto Diggs and Devontae, like I would be so much happier. But so I did, to your point, I didn't draft Dalvin. I didn't, and, I wasn't drafting Derrick Henry. I wasn't drafting Najee, and I wasn't drafting Mixon. I ended up at the field on Saquon because of what we talked about. He went from the 3rd round to the 1-2 turn. I regret that. I wish I had just kept taking him, but I was doing, so you see I'm a little over on CD. Javonte kind of hung out in that Saquon range, so I kept taking him. Debo, I did just kind of be like, I'm just going to take all the wide receivers. But to your point, like, honestly, I'm mad I took Andrews. I wish this 3% Aaron Jones was 0. I wish the 1% Alvin Cook. And like, it seems silly because it's like, it's 3%, it's 1%, it's whatever, it's 2% Najee. Next year, I would rather just move those, like that it's going to, if we add all those up, we're talking about 10, 15% ownership that I could put on the guys I actually wanted on in the first rounds. And then we'll get, the only thing I was going to add to exactly, then we're going to get to this range. Mike Williams, Sutton, Gabe, Waddle, Hollywood. That's when I can just start to spread it out because they're all the same to me.
Right.
Like, obviously, I like Gabe more. I wanted to take a stand on Gabe. But like Hollywood, Juju, Judy, they're all the same. So then I can make my exposure flat there. And maybe even, so I know you don't like ETN, right? But like maybe ETN, maybe Breece Hall or whatever, whoever you like in that range, I think you can still spread it out, but it's with like the Saquon thing. As long as you're not jumping through tiers, who gives a shit?
Right.
Take Saquon 9th. If what is he? What do I have him ranked? Like why didn't I have Saquon 10th overall? Take him fucking 10th if all the other guys are gone. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and if you like him better than Eckler, it's funny because I'm looking at mine on my screen, and we have a lot of the same exposures. There's a few differences. I have 3% Jonathan Taylor to your 11%. That's just so that I could get my 19% Jamar Chase and BBM.
Right.
But yeah, we were on the same thing, and it's funny because now we want to make the same adjustments for next year, right? Where it's like we were already doing it, but fuck it, let's do it harder next year.
Yeah.
Is kind of the play.
And I totally agree with what GA is saying. Like, I've been trolling and fucking around on Twitter and all that with reactions, overreactions, and all that. But I think when it's definitely also, I'm going to say something that sounds totally like confirmation bias. But when your stance was this, and you kind of, as you said, hedged your bets a little bit.
Yep.
Right. You didn't want to say, like you said, I could see past the Dalvin Cook being a smash. But so I didn't want to. Well, I did take 0, but you may not want to take 0 of X player, right? I have 3% Derrick Henry. Of course, there are scenarios in which Derrick Henry smashes, runs for 2,000 yards, he's the guy you need, whatever. Especially now he plays the goddamn Cowboys, who are a shit show in week 17. If he goes for 204, would you really be surprised?
Right.
Probably not. But point being, you see my this is my rankings literally on the screen. Travis Kelce 6th, Stephon Diggs 7th, Devontae Adams 8th. I have Eckler 9th, but you're never getting him if you have him ranked 9th. I have Saquon 10th, right? CD 11th, Javonte 12th, Debo's high, et cetera, et cetera. And I hedged a little, not a lot, but I hedged just a little. And when you think about this game that we're playing, and you go into week 1 and you see it play out where you're like, that's my whole strategy just came to fruition in this. It was like, take JT or McCaffrey, take Saquon. I took some Swift, take Javonte. Outside of the other running backs, who gives a shit? I don't want them. I want the wide receivers, and then I'll figure the rest out later. And when you start to see it come to fruition, clearly that means it's just a smidge more likely to come to fruition over the course of the entire season. And you hedged your bets a little bit during the draft cycle. I think it's at least reasonable to consider that maybe stop being a little baby back bitch and don't hedge your bets. You know what I mean? You only get 150. I'm trying to win $2 million. Like, why do I need 2% Derrick Henry? I don't. It's not helping me to take 2%. Like, it's so
the 1% Eckler.
Yeah.
All right. What I want to get into next. It's week 1. Let's overreact. What do you want a victory lap? Like, one player, one take. What do you want a victory lap for after week 1?
Oh man, do you have one in the chamber?
I do.
You go first.
I'm 100% right about Travis Etienne.
No, I like it. I
am 100% right about Travis Etienne, and I'm gonna fucking start victory lapping it right now, right this minute, because he's dead. You maniacs that were taking him in the 3rd round, peace to those teams, because you might drag him to the playoffs with you, but he ain't getting you there. He's not going to be the guy. It's clear. Like, just watching that team and knowing how that team's going to be in shootouts or playing from behind a lot of the year, and this dude can't even catch a football, and he's supposed to be a pass catching back. You called this. You made me even more scared when you're like, he doesn't even know how to catch a football. He had to stay and work on it. And then he's out here dropping walk-in touchdowns in week 1. Dunzo. James Robinson is going to take the majority. It might be a 60% majority, but he's getting all the high value touches. This dude's dead. Absolutely dead.
So the what you mentioned is, I don't have much ETN either. I took a little bit here and there. Well, not in the 3rd round when you would get him. I'm a 0 running back, bro. When I get my 3 wide receivers or whatever, and he was 4th or 5th round, I might take him a little bit because he's an explosive football player that it fits my structure, whatever. So you see, Jay Moyer, who's a really smart football guy, in his tweet here, he posted this during the preseason. So you see, it's August 14th. This has been my stance. I've talked about this for a long time. I probably have tweets from before this preseason out there that are like, people have a misconception of what Travis Etienne is as a football player. I've talked about this before. I play a ton of college football DFS. I watch a lot of college football. I really enjoy college football. Travis Etienne did an interview. Clemson was so good while he was in college, obviously, but he never really caught passes early in his career. And he did an interview when they were the end of his career, when him and Lawrence are still there. And he did an interview on College Game Day where he talks about, like, I knew if I wanted to play in the NFL, I had to learn how to catch the ball. And he said, I can't remember the words or whatever, but he basically says, like, I'm not natural at catching the ball. Basically, I have shitty hands. It's basically what he says on ESPN.
Right.
And he's like, I just went out and got on the jugs machine every day because I knew I had to learn how to catch the ball if I wanted to be a high pick in the NFL draft. And so they started to use him and throw him the ball a little bit and everything. But he is not, like, people keep saying he's DeAndre Swift or he's Alvin Kamara or stuff like that. Those dudes are like receivers who happen to play running back.
Yeah.
This dude is not that. He's a running back who has tried to force himself how to learn to catch the ball. And so that's it. You see this tweet here that says he had receiving production. So if you just pull out your spreadsheet and put your glasses on, and pull out the pencil, you would say, oh my God, look, he's a good receiver. But he doesn't have good hands. He's not a natural pass catcher. They just would check it down to him and throw some screens because once the ball's in his hands, he's fucking awesome.
Yep.
But you got to catch it first. And the NFL game is very, very, very different. So that's what I was like. I don't think our industry, even the very, very smart people that I love and trust with the prospect stuff that are smarter with prospects than me, I don't think they were evaluating ETN appropriately. And I think the Jags have done nothing but tell us that this entire offseason. They came out and said, James Robinson is coming back and he's going to play on third downs and he's going to play at the goal line, which is a different can of worms. But he's going to play on third downs because he's a better passing down back than Travis Etienne is. And all Etienne did was go out in week 1 and prove everything we just talked about in terms of what his true receiving skill set is. And it's not that he can't get better. It's not that he's not going to have production in the passing game and everything like that. But if you paid for young Alvin Kamara upside on maybe a worse offense, I don't think you were on the right path.
I agree 100%. And it feels good. It feels real good. I think I only drafted him. I think Gretsch made me draft him once, and Kareem might have made me draft him. And I was vomiting in my mouth as we did it. And I tried to get Gretsch to find a way to sell me on him, because of all people, if we're being honest, I think Gretsch is probably the smartest guy that I listen to in the space, to be perfectly honest. And there's only been 2 takes over the years that I didn't agree with him on. And that's a lot of takes, right? So it's easy to remember the ones you don't agree on. So I'm not shitting on Gretsch. That dude is one of the smartest guys in the entire field. But I didn't see the ETN thing, and I'm going to victory lap it. And he might have 1 or 2 games where he goes for 2 touchdowns and everything. And
he will. I'm sure he will.
Yeah. But I think overall he's not going to be worth the capital you spent on him in the offseason on these drafts, personally.
I agree. And like I said, I don't have very much Travis Etienne. And if I didn't have this take that we just talked about with what he actually is as a receiver,
you might have fell into it.
Can you think of a more running back that I would love? First round pick, obviously, and he is crazy explosive. So like you said, he's going to have he's going to rip off a 50-yard touchdown here or there, right? He is going to catch a screen because he can probably even catch a screen. But they ran him on that corner route and he drops he's not a natural receiver. I'm going to say, I'm looking at my exposures. Can I say Darrell Henderson? He's my highest owned running back. He also obviously fits the 0 RB thing, but it never. So our industry was out on Cam Akers, generally speaking. There were, of course, people that were in on Cam Akers, but as a whole, as a collective, Cam Akers was not somebody people were excited about. If our perception was that he was the starting lead running back for the Rams, and we were all very excited about the Rams. Maybe we're not as much so now, but we were very excited about the Rams. He would be going way higher. He went at the 1-2 turn last year before he got hurt.
Right.
So that's where he probably deserves to go if he's the workhorse running back for the Rams. He falls to 4th, 5th, whatever round. But yet, Darrell Henderson is always available in the double-digit rounds.
Right.
Always. That doesn't make any sense to me. And I know he didn't smash from a fantasy points perspective, but he was the workhorse running back on the Los Angeles Rams, Super Bowl champions, who we know what the McVay offense does for these running backs. There's a reason why Henderson was good last year, why Akers has been good, and why Sony Michel was awesome last year when he came on. And he was available for most of the summer, in the 130s, 140s or something like that. He finally got up into the 115 or 120 range or whatever. We're talking about a 10th, 11th round pick who people, and this is the same thing as the ETN thing. They told us McVay has quotes saying we have 2 starting running backs. And even then he was lying. What he was really saying is Darrell Henderson is our starting running back, and this Cam Akers loser can't run anymore.
I was trying to find ways to be in on Akers throughout the year, and I still couldn't do it. I wanted to be. And when I actually started to get in on Akers, luckily for me, is the last week of drafting, he was falling to the 6th round.
Yeah.
So I had already finished all my BBM teams. So a couple of my puppy 75s or whatever draft that was, I have some probably higher Cam Akers exposures on those teams. And I'm still not completely out on Akers, but I think he's going to be very much game situation oriented. They were behind last week. I mean, the block thing is something that
was bad, wasn't it?
Really to be concerned about, because if you're gonna let your quarterback get blown up, it doesn't matter what running back you are going to get pulled. You are just going to get taken out of the game if you're not going to pick up blocks. We've seen that time and time again. That's why rookies don't play on 3rd downs like we want them to a lot of times, because they don't know how to pick up a block coming through, right? We talk about it all the time. So that's concerning. I mean, I'm sort of looking at him for DFS as an early look for next week because he's
Henderson?
So cheap.
Or
Akers, because he's super cheap and his matchup is decent from what I remember.
Pretty good. Mm-hmm.
So Falcons. I'm like, and I think everyone's going to be off of him. So I'm like, this feels like the Akers smash spot. He's like 5,200 on DK. We can look at some DFS stuff in a little bit. We can actually transition into DFS. Did you have any fun sweats this weekend?
No, my teams were absolutely terrible. Week 1 is always one of my hardest. I've had maybe 1 or 2 good week 1s like in my entire career. My difficulty with week 1 for DFS is that there are so many good plays. So many dogs almost just tackled me. I wasn't sure that they were going to. I could see them sprinting into the room out of the corner of my eye, and I'm like, I wasn't sure they were going to stop. As you can see, it's so, and I don't play like 150 or whatever. I had the tickets from maxing the DK Millie, but and I had one really good Mahomes team. Like really, really good Mahomes team that did pretty well. That like at least got me a little bit of my money back. But my main teams were terrible, and it's just so hard because in week 1, like I said, there's not only so many good plays, but then sometimes some of the good plays that you like I for anybody that doesn't know, I work for Roto Grinders. I do DFS content for Roto Grinders, and like Mahomes was was my quarterback coming into the week. I'm trying to think, there was a couple guys that then Hollywood, who wasn't very good, but these guys then start to get steamed up over the course of the week. And so like in my main team, for example, I pivoted to Lamar, and like he was fine, but it was just then when you pivot to Lamar, it kind of makes some other things change in your lineup or whatever. And I played Kyle Pitts over Travis Kelce because Kyle Pitts was going to be, a third of the ownership of Travis Kelce. And that, even though Kelce was my like conviction play of the week, it's like, it's just week 1. It's so easy to be like, well, nobody's, everybody's playing Michael Pittman. I like Michael Pittman too, but I can just play Rashad Bateman, and I like both of them. And so week 1 is the difficult one for me. I'm very excited about week 2.
I had a decent sweat and the double spy. So I'm starting to alter the way I play DFS going forward. I used to like to max the $4 or $5 milli on FanDuel. I just prefer MMEing on FanDuel as opposed to DK. And I like the DK single entries a lot better. So
FanDuel single entries are useless. DraftKings has really good ones. Really
the $75 on FanDuel is fine. So like I played that one. So,
but DraftKings has that equivalent plus like a ton more and 3 entry max, and like there's just so many options on DraftKings for whatever you want to play.
100%. And I'm starting to reduce. So like I think I did 80 teams in the $4 on FanDuel. So I'm going to be even reducing that even more going forward. Probably 15 next week, and then maybe even less. And then I'll dabble between the double spy and the single spy going forward. But I cashed both my single entry teams, which was fun. They both min cash, but the
Mahomes.
Yeah, I had Mahomes on both. It was Mahomes MVS, but like I had Christian Kirk, I had
Fucking
Jamar Chase.
MVS. I know. I almost the one team. I think so. I played 20 teams because I had the 15 tickets, and then I'm like, well, I'll do 20 so then I can play all the 20 max stuff with those teams and the millies and blah blah blah. I was like, I'm gonna lock MVS. I think so. I locked. So people will think I'm crazy, but I locked Chase, Miles Sanders, and Chase Edmonds. I locked those three guys, and I was gonna lock MVS, but then I started hand building the last couple of lineups, and I needed the 100 off from MVS to Hardman. So I basically locked MVS, nice. But my only good team was Mahomes, Kelsey, Hardman, and so it was close. But obviously didn't get there. I didn't have Saquon or Jefferson, which is like when a couple guys hang 40 balls and you don't have them, you're probably not going to get there.
Yeah, I swapped off Saquon because I thought he was going to be heavily owned.
He was really popular. That's the other thing. It's like I really like Saquon, and he's 6K. Of course, he's a smash. But week one, it's difficult to know the delicate balance of eating chalk and not eating chalk.
So I nailed it. I picked a Houston Texans tight end. I just picked the wrong one. And the funny thing is, I don't even remember what defense I played. I think I played the Raiders because they were just so cheap. It's not like I wanted to play the Raiders, but to make the rest of the lineup work, I was trying to get up to the Dolphins, and Brevin Jordan was like 3,100, and I wanted to go down to get up to the Dolphins D, which would have been the play. And I also work for Roto Grinders, and I had to produce all the Sunday shows, so it was tough to try to edit my lineups on Sunday.
Welcome to my life. We get done with the I get done with the show at basically 11:30 my time, right? 12:30 Eastern. And I'm like worn out. You talk for an hour and you've already been probably building lineups and stuff like that. And I'm like, I probably should tinker more and like fine tune, but that last half hour, I'm just like, fuck it, whatever, let it ride. Whatever I have in there is fine.
Yeah, so I was like sitting there trying to produce stuff because I don't want to mess anything up. Thanks, Tuttle, for coming in and ruining in the middle of everything, by the way. I was sitting there and he just starts adding things to the screen in between you guys' show. And I'm just like, what are you doing? What is happening, Tuttle? But yeah, we fixed it. But yeah, so it was hard to edit my teams at that point. And maybe I would have found it. Maybe I wouldn't have. I can't say for sure I would have. I knew I wanted to go to the Dolphins. But that's what I'm going to be doing with DK, and in the future or today, if we want, we can start building first look lineups just because that's a little bit fun.
Did you play any Battle Royale or any drafters drafts or anything like that? I'm super fascinated. Maybe it's just my I played DFS for so long that, and I have to like produce content and stuff for it, that maybe it doesn't fascinate me as much as it fascinates the whole world. But the fact that like DFS is not solved, of course. I say this all the time. It's kind of like best ball. Is like when these things are peer to peer, the edges will either become less or change or both. But they're never solved. It's never solvable, right? You can never come in and say this was the right play, this was the wrong play. I mean, maybe you can say that from a technically an EV perspective, but that's also subjective to projections, blah blah blah. But these drafts, like battle royales specifically, like there's 50K to first in the main battle royale on Underdog, and I'm like fascinated by these. I made like $4 on Sunday in battle royale, so like nothing special at all. But it was like Kelsey was going in like the second round, and he was so very clearly the best tight end that I just like kept taking Kelsey in the first round, and then kind of like we talked about with week one, there's so many options. And in battle royales, only it's six teams in a draft, and you would draft 6 players. So only think about that. 36 players get drafted. So there's guys outside of the top 36 that like are smashes. I mean, it happens all the time. Like I was taking MVS as an example of who was outside of the top 36. But I'm really fascinated by the strategy for these drafts because, we talk about it with best ball all the time where people are so beholden to ADP, and that moves over to these drafts as well. But the leverage on not being beholden to ADP is like through the roof in these contests, as opposed to best ball is like, okay, I took Jalen Darden instead of, some 18th round pick. This is like, I'm taking Deebo Samuel or whatever instead of some guy who's 100% owned in this tournament.
Yeah. I just want to answer this question real quick. Then I want to expand upon that. How do you guys rank these tight ends season long? Hunter Henry, Tyler Higbee, Logan Thomas, Robert Tonyan, 1A, 1B, 1C, 1D. And that's how I rank them. They're all the same person. Like, I don't know. Like, what do you want to? It's probably you're looking at Higbee, Tonyan, Henry, Thomas, maybe, but
Yeah,
it's not.
What was Henry? How much did Henry was the Henry Jonnu thing? I haven't looked into that yet.
I haven't either.
They were so bad. The Patriots were so bad.
Yeah, but we knew they were going to be bad this year. That's like it's no sweat to me because I knew what this season was going to be. I was ready for that stomping on Sunday for the Patriots.
It's definitely Higbee, but I think Tunyan's in the discussion because Tonyan didn't. The Packers were bad, but I think that may be a generally good sign for Tonyan. And he didn't play a lot. He only played like 42% of snaps in his first week, but I think that's going to grow.
So to get back to your point about this peer-to-peer stuff, I always go back to poker, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is a game that people act like is more solved than DFS even is. And
because we have a better idea of the mathematical probability. I mean, we know a lot of mathematical probabilities around poker. DFS, we haven't quite got, it's not the same. It's not the same math equations, but people ignore the peer-to-peer part, right, of poker and focus on the math.
Right. And that's the whole thing. You go sit down at a casino, and when you're playing lower stakes, they're not playing that way. Like 80% of your table isn't thinking about this stuff. When you're playing these DFS contests, even like I guarantee that $200 double spy that I play, yeah, there's a lot of smart people in there, but I guarantee there's just some rich people that are just throwing around $200 because they want the sweat.
Yeah.
There was a guy that put 25 grand on 3 underdogs to win straight up over the weekend, and he won $1.2 million.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
And that's just the guy that doesn't care about money. Right? Like he has the money to do that. So those are what they're going to buy into. Like there's people with expendable income that just want to sweat something. So you got to remember that just because people are getting sharper, there's still quote unquote fish in the lake on every level. And then once you do get to those higher levels, it's just, you can understand how the majority of the group is thinking. And then you don't have to fully go away from that. I could have played Saquon. Like if I thought that I had an edge at 2 other positions that no one else was looking at, like I don't have to completely fade Saquon, right? I mean, that's why we talk about cash games are 2v2s and 3v3 sometimes. So there's still ways to play these DFS slates. I think even more so than people let on. Like I don't think DFS is dying. I think it's like something you bring up. We swim in our bubble a lot. So we know that there's smart people in the field. We know that there's smart people doing stuff. Everyone in our chat is relatively smart for the most part on this stuff. And if they're not, they're here to get better, or they're looking for avenues to get better. There's a lot of people that never look to get better. They just want to put in a lineup. They want to take 3 minutes. I'm a Dolphins fan. I like Tua. I like Jalen Waddle. I want to play these guys. I want to root for them. And we got to remember that those people exist in everything. You got to remember it in best ball. You got to remember it in DFS. You got to remember it in poker. And those are the people that you and everyone else at the table is trying to exploit. But guess what? You're going to fight each other sometimes.
And to your point, there may be a few less of them in DFS, and the people who are bad may have, just because the industry is a little more evolved, similar to poker, the industry is a little more evolved. The casual person may have access to things that can help put them above a certain bar that make their lineups better or their plays in poker better. In best ball, I just don't think we've reached that. Like we have not reached that. But rewind to the beginning of this whole episode where we were talking about things like I wish I just drafted 0 in hero running back teams is like people don't even know what that means. Like a lot of people don't even know what that means. Like
Right.
like you enter a draft and most people probably don't even know what that means. Like what is a hero? What do you mean by hero running back? And Underdog actually posted today there was like 1.8 million teams drafted or something like that on Underdog over this summer, and they posted the most common like stack and whatever, and one of them was the most common like structure, meaning how many of each position, and it was 2682, which is like the least surprising like the least surprising thing ever. But it was funny, somebody, Jay Warner, who is in Discord, is a smart guy, posted like, oh, the wide receiver bros broke this, and I actually think that's wrong. I actually don't think that's it at all. I think people just draft balanced teams. Even like people that started 3 running backs still draft 6 running backs.
Yeah,
I think that's just the casual consumer feels comfortable with 2682. That it has nothing to do, of course. The people like us that are drafting 0 running back teams and being smart, that impacts the number a little bit. But I think that's just like part of the fact that it's still a casual consumer sport. It's not a game. It's not solved. It's not like DFS where there's a reason why the guy who projects, for 6x his salary or whatever is the highest owned guy. That's not where we're at in best ball yet.
I agree. I think just calling an audible here because we're getting up on the time. I think we should build the lineup, first look lineup, and on DK. We'll say that this is going to be for some sort of single entry type of deal, and I will give you the honors of going first if you want to build based off a stack or whatever you want to do here.
Trey Lance.
Oh my fucking god!
You knew that was coming. Can I talk about that really quick?
You can. Do you want to stack him with anybody?
I mean, I prefer Debo. Debo had 8 targets last week, and I think Debo is still just the alpha. Plus, Elijah Mitchell's out, and I think whether Debo wanted it or not, I think he's probably going to have to play some running back. At least he got the bag. At least he got the bag now before he has to go back to getting 6 carries a week. But I think he's going to have to suck it up and play some running back because their offensive line is not very good. Mitchell was very clearly the best back that they had. Jeff Wilson is kind of just a dude. I don't know if they'll make TDP active. We'll see. Jordan Mason is just a dude. I think that if they're going to make explosive plays in the run game now without Mitchell, it has to be Debo. And so you kind of get this weird, Lance could still only throw for like 2 touchdowns. And if he runs for 1 and Debo runs, like they could score 28 points and you just get it all with these 2 dudes. You know what I mean? That's kind of how I view it. I just think the Lance thing is I also want to be clear. Like I obviously draft a lot of Lance and come to his defense in conversations and stuff, but like this slander for him is ridiculous. He is not a good football player right now.
Right.
He has barely played football. Like the same people literally saying like just bench him or whatever would have benched Peyton Manning. They probably would have benched Tom Brady. And I don't think Trey Lance is that. I'm on record saying I don't think he's going to be a good NFL quarterback like over the long term. But you have to give the kid a chance to play a little bit before we just bury him. He played 2.5 games last year. He played 1 game this year in a fucking monsoon. And not only was it a monsoon, that field is such a joke. Did you watch the celebration from the Bears at the end? It was like going down a slip and slide.
Yep.
It was a joke. And so like he's still the same upside bet we've been talking about forever. He's not very good in terms of like a real life NFL passing quarterback, but that doesn't matter. Did you watch the Ravens game at all this week? Lamar is still not a good passer.
Don't give me flashbacks because one of my picks on my single entry was Michael Carter, and watching him drop that freaking touchdown when I had him at like 1 or 2% ownership. I mean, he still smashed for his price, but oh god, I wanted to vomit. That Chase touchdown, that Carter touchdown, and things are a little bit different on that team that I had.
But I played Lamar Bateman Luckily, Bateman caught the bomb touchdown, but like, man, Lamar is still rough throwing the ball. And so it's like, why are we cool with Josh Allen and Lamar and all this stuff, but we won't even give Trey Lance? Like, let him play at least like a year or something. Let him figure this out.
And just to expand upon liking Trey Lance this week, I think that Seattle is I think there's two teams the epitome of this from week one. Pittsburgh played their Super Bowl week one, and Seattle played their Super Bowl week one. I think you're going to see the real Seattle Seahawks on Sunday at whatever time they play. I'm guessing 4:00 Eastern, because they're both West Coast teams. I think you're going to see the real Seattle Seahawks, and I don't think it's going to be pretty. I think they are going to get absolutely dog walked by San Fran, even
100%.
as bad as they are. So I do like
Kyle Shanahan is licking his chops. Watch, like, that defense was bad. Russ let them off the hook all day, because Russ is so weird. He was checking down to like Javonte and the tight ends, and then throwing the Russ, hero balls down the sideline to. They were just trying to take away the deep stuff, because I mean, I will give Pete Carroll a smidge of credit. He knows how Russ plays, and like, make him check down. He won't use the middle of the field, and he didn't take advantage of what the Seahawks defense was giving to him. Kyle Shanahan, like, that's the dream. Kyle Shanahan is just sitting here like, oh my God, they're going to let me throw it to Debo and Ayuk and Kittle over the middle, and Kittle's going to be back this week. Like, they're just going to light up the Seahawks, I think.
All right. I'm going to take a high price player, and then we'll have to figure it out from there. But I think this is going to be the absolute week to take CMC.
Love it.
Because I think people are going to look at week one and be really results oriented on more so him than the other guys, but they're going to look at Taylor, and Taylor's got the Jacksonville Jaguars this week. So it's a great matchup. And Saquon's on the other side of this game playing Carolina, who Carolina just let up, I think, 200 plus rushing yards. So people are going to be smashing Saquon. So your ownership on CMC, I think, is going to be possibly the lowest you're going to get it all year. Coming off a relatively rough game with these other guys around him that people are going to rather play, that I think this is like and the Giants suck, by the way.
Yeah, they still suck. Yeah,
they still suck. They won, but they still suck. So I think this is 100% a week to be playing CMC. But now
Totally.
we are already getting into some salary trouble here.
That's okay. We can work with that. I got a few. I already started some of my tags and stuff, so I'm at least a little prepared. I was just gonna say on CMC, totally agree. And from a rate perspective, they ran 50 plays. Carolina, 50. So like, when we look at the box score and you say, 10 carries and 4 targets, that looks awful. Well, they did come out throwing, and I do think we shouldn't expect the random 13 catch CMC game anymore, but it doesn't mean we won't get the random 9 or 10 catch game with Baker. Right. It'll still happen.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's still going to happen.
He still played. He played 100. He got 100% of the passing down work. He's still Christian McCaffrey. Nothing has changed. So I love that. I have a running back, but here's a salary saver. Okay.
All right.
Tight end is bad because we're missing Kelsey and some of the tight end stuff, and we're not using Kittle because we played Debo. I got my favorite min price tight end of the week. Ready? Juwan Johnson, $2,500 on the Saints. They play the Bucks.
You had to pick the name that everyone
exactly.
has.
It's New Orleans tight end. Go to tight end.
Here it is.
Yep, 2,500. So he played. It was something like 75% of the snaps. He got 5 targets. He was 3rd on the team in targets, 3rd on the team in air yards. Adam Troutman played like 40% of snaps. Basically, Juwan Johnson was the lead tight end. Also kind of like quasi rotating through with the wide receivers. None of the wide receivers played all the snaps. They all kind of played in the 70-ish% range. He was basically right. He obviously not from a production or talent perspective, but he was basically like right there with MT, Landry, Olave, whatever. He tied with Olave for most snaps of a skill position player. Juwan Johnson did. So there's a punt tight end for you.
All right, let's go with, this will be controversial, Kadarius Toney as a salary saver for wide receiver. Now, I was making fun of the fact that, I wrote for one am shocked that a wide receiver that they were trying to trade
Yeah.
barely had any target shares in that game. But I think the one thing that you can say is if you watch what he did in that game on his limited opportunity, he is still the second most explosive player that they have on that offense. And I don't particularly think it's close between him and anybody else for that role. So I think that the offense as a whole, like the coaching staff, is going to have to suck their pride up a little bit and look at Kadarius Toney and be like, I'm not going to say he's going to play 100% of snaps, but we're talking about a $4,200 wide receiver that has the ability to just house one at any point in time. I like Kadarius Toney at 4,200 to get the opposite side of that McCaffrey game, especially when I think everyone's going to be on Barkley again this week.
I totally agree. Now I'm going to put my running back out there, and we're going back to the 2021 NFL best ball well with Antonio Gibson.
All right.
Plays the Lions. Lions are just the never-ending smash spot for running backs. Every Eagles running back got there again, and Jalen Hurts. If you just use Jalen Hurts' rushing production, like they're just a feeding frenzy on the ground. Obviously, Brian Robinson is on IR, and what's really positive about it is what we hoped for last year. Using Gibson in some creative ways and using him in the past. He ran more routes than McKissick. He also was playing a little bit of like slot receiver. He was doing a lot more creative stuff, and they were using him in the way we dreamed about last year when we were drafting him. And so he's a smash against the Lions for me.
All right. I know we're a wide receiver company, but let's do what I was talking about earlier, because this way we can play somebody cheap.
God, you're a sick fish.
Let's go with Akers in our flex, and that way we can punt tight end. I mean, we're basically probably going to punt defense. Let's just say we're going to take the Bengals. Right?
How do you not play? Can we talk about that for 2 seconds?
Yeah.
How do you not? It's really hard, right? And I know I played DFS for a long time. I know the shtick everybody's going to say, like, oh, they're going to be so high owned and defense is really volatile and blah, blah, blah. But like, I mean, I'm still probably going to play them. Like, it's the savings is just through the roof in by far the best spot of the week. I don't know how to not play him.
But doing that gives us 6,900 for another wideout here, and there's like so many options to go. We could, I'm even almost okay with changing this Akers thing, inserting Jamar Chase, and figuring out what's left for our.
Yes.
But let's do that. Let's do Jamar Chase let's put him at wide receiver, even though we'll probably take another wide receiver.
Yeah. Third from the top. 8K.
And that gives us 4,500 for the flex, which gives us what? Some garbage, but we can find something here. DPJ.
Look at DPJ right there. 11 targets. One of the highest target shares in the entire league.
Yeah. So let's assign that lineup just for now, because I'm definitely going to have to enter this into something, but we'll go back over it real quick. This is just my little shell lineup to get my entry in.
Oh, Baker. I like it.
Yeah. I was kind of looking at Baker just as like a variant cheap quarterback type of deal against the Giants.
You have Kirk. You need to play the Lawrence Kirk instead of Baker.
Lawrence Kirk.
I like Kirk. Kirk's too cheap too. We the chart and stuff we pulled up earlier with target share. Kirk is a smash.
Kirk might be my other victory lap soon enough.
It's a good one. You should have used him, I think. Maybe even more than ETN. Kirk.
I know, but I like.
You could have double tapped. Same team. You could have double tapped.
Yeah, I mean, but it was for the thesis of why I liked Kirk. So, anyways, the team we just built was Trey Lance, Christian McCaffrey, Antonio Gibson, Jamar Chase, Debo, Kadarius Toney, Juwan Johnson, Peoples-Jones, and the Bengals D, which is probably going to be the highest own out of all the things that we have. But it's just to the point I was making, the Bengals D is going to be heavily owned. But when the rest of our lineup, this is early look, so this could all change, but just looking at our lineup, a lot of this is not going to be chalk. So if we're taking the chalk D, who cares? at that point. We're leveraging everywhere else. That's kind of like the points that I'm making on this whole thing.
Definitely. And that works for all these different gambling games that we're playing, not sports betting, obviously, but like in best ball, it's like people talk about being unique and all that nonsense. And it's not nonsense, but you know what I mean? It became a little bit of a meme. But like if you take guys at the 1-2 turn who are paired together all the time, yes, okay, maybe every single pick thereafter you don't want to take right at ADP because you are going to create a lot of overlap, but you don't have to. You don't have to gal brain everything.
Right.
Like you don't have to get leverage with every pick in DFS. You don't have to get leverage with every single player on your entire team. It's actually where I fall into my own personal biggest traps, is because my brain works that way. It's like, oh, so-and-so is chalk. I like his teammate, right? So like last year, let's say Devontae Adams is chalk. I'm going to play Aaron Jones. And then DeAndre Swift is chalk. I'm going to play Amon-Ra. And then Kittle is chalk. I'm going to play Ayuk, right? You don't have to do it at every fucking spot. You don't have to fade the chalk at every. We talked about Saquon, like you said earlier. Like I played Lamar, Bateman, right? You play Elijah Moore. You play all these guys that are 5 to 10%. So what if you play Saquon? Like it literally doesn't matter. His ownership does not matter on that team, and so it's thinking through all that kind of stuff. And I think, again, going back to the like snake drafts and battle royales and stuff, that's the same thing there. It's a much more difficult balance because you only have 6 players, and I think people again screw that up. Not a lot of people are really crazy gal braining, but I've seen a little bit, and it's like, we're going to gal brain the absolute shit out of this and draft like 4 guys who are going undrafted, where I give up so much upside and so much projection, but I'm unique, right?
Right.
On the flip side, everybody drafts this like your team is duped, like, your team is duped like 100 times. That's horrible. You should never draft that team. But the sweet spot is always in the middle in all of these formats.
Yeah. And just for the battle royale thing, I think, to your point, that is even more exploitable because it incorporates that people are FOMOing the ADP, where it's like, oh, well, if they're getting drafted here, I have to take somebody in this range. And it's like, no, go off the board. You find Donovan People-Jones or whatever you find. Now you have a guy that's 2-3% owned in that contest, and you get a massive edge if he does, even if he gets close to like what other players are getting, right? Just because he's so different that you have such upside with that. So,
yep. So I did a just to put a bow on that. My big thing that I did last week was I was taking I took a bunch of Mahomes, a bunch of Kelsey. I was taking the Chases and such of the world. And then I was punting running back and taking Miles Sanders. Miles Sanders was one of my big takes of the week or whatever you want to call it. Mm-hmm. And I was like, if I can get 102 from Miles, and we were really fucking close, 96-1, and he got we were close to hitting on the Miles Sanders thing. If he just matches the Saquons or comes close, like you said, to the Saquons and JTs and stuff of the world, but I have Mahomes, Kelsey, Chase, right? All these combinations of that. So that was my take. I was like, I don't really care about being unique because I'm going to take a bunch of this running back. I'm going to punt running back, and I'm going to take a bunch of this guy who's probably going to be like 5% in this whole tournament. If he hits, I win. Like that's it. That's all. That was one win condition, right? Especially because I just have a bunch of the superstars at every other position.
And if we want to talk about a team where every player ran bad fantasy wise, it was the Eagles. You had Hurts could have been the quarterback to have this week. Any of the running backs could have been, because each running back had a rushing touchdown.
3 rushing. Yeah. All 3. They each had 1. Yeah.
Like anyone could have smashed from the Eagles this week. So they're just going to be a fun team this year. That's always been my quote unquote second favorite team, just because I loved Randall Cunningham. That was my favorite quarterback. He's why I watch football. So yeah, they're a fun team to watch this year. While we're doing that, let's end this show. Let's just quickly hit on Thursday night, because I think the Thursday night game is a mess. I couldn't believe, when I saw who was playing Thursday night, I was like, why are you doing this to me, football? Why do I have to stay up till 11:30 when I have to wake up at 3:30 in the morning? This is not good for my overall health, but I have to watch this game. If you watch football, how do you not watch Chiefs Chargers? Like it's a marquee matchup on a Thursday night. And it used to always, and I swear to God, there was one season that the Jaguars and the Titans played every Thursday night.
I know. Why does every Jags Titans game play on Thursday? My take is these are two of the top three teams, and these two teams and the Bills. I think, in my personal opinion, we need to assume Keenan Allen health, because as much as you talked about Gretsch earlier, as much as Gretsch might be touting the DeAndre Carter breakout, DeAndre Carter is not Keenan Allen. So obviously Keenan is not going to play this week, but assuming Keenan Allen health, I think the Chargers, with the upgrades they made on defense and the offensive line, and the Chiefs, and it's the Cardinals. And like, I think I expected that. I think you probably expected that. I think the Cardinals legit stink. I think that the Cardinals are in for a really bad season. Again, that's a little confirmation bias from week 1, but now we're going to see, like, basically both of these teams. Is that true? Are the Chargers, have they made that step? And are the Chiefs actually better this year with kind of a more diverse offense, a smash offensive line, a little bit better defense? I like the Chiefs. I think Andy Reid has also made some really kind of impressive adjustments to how they're playing on offense, just like from a schematic perspective, and that's also part of what is helping the Chiefs. And if not that Keenan is like that big of a game changer, but it's a pretty big downgrade from a team who, if anything, as crazy as it sounds, the weapons for the Chargers were a little bit of a concern coming into the year, not upgrading at wide receiver. And so now when you take away their best guy, I think that's the issue for the Chargers. So I like the Chiefs. Incoming. Yeah, exactly. Well, if Keenan is going to be banged up all year, which I mean, I don't think that he is, but if he is going to be, if he's getting old, right? If there's going to be concerns, they're probably going to have to look to Odell or Fuller or something.
Do you want to get real galaxy brain on that? Who were we just talking about that the team wanted to trade him? Wouldn't you?
Oh, Tony. The Giants. The Giants have a gluttony of wide receivers. Yeah.
Why wouldn't, if you really don't like Kadarius Toney and you're the Giants, you can probably get a somewhat decent return for him from the Chargers if they're looking for something. And he's on a rookie deal, so you might be looking at something like that as well. What I'll say about it is it's MVS and the captain spot season on Thursday night.
Love it.
Like I don't really like showdown slates too much. It's not like my bread and butter. I've won one, but it was only for like $900, which was very sad. I mean, I love $900. Yeah, but and the other thing is we probably should invite Gretsch on the show for next Tuesday, considering the fact that although we sang his praises, we shit on him twice in this episode. And
what was the other one we shit on besides
ETN and whatever you were just bringing up?
DeAndre I wasn't shit. DeAndre Carter. That was one of his best takes.
Well, yeah.
DeAndre Carter was. People were saying Jalen Guyton.
I shit on him. I shit on him.
Thank you. Don't lump me into your fucking bucket. DeAndre Carter caught a touchdown after Keenan Allen got hurt. That was just an absolute smash call. And even like I said, I like blindly trust Gretsch. He's brilliant. And like you said, I disagreed with the ETN thing, but when he said DeAndre Carter, I was like, that makes sense, but I don't know. It's kind of one of those where you're like, DeAndre Carter, really? It was kind of like the Ty Montgomery thing, who RIP Ty Montgomery went on IR today, but it was like, those are what make the guys that are good at all this good, because they're able to be like, put connect the dots on DeAndre Carter and Ty Montgomery. And I'm not saying those are the guys, for necessarily like best ball or whatever, but like people would say, take Jalen Guyton in the last round. And it's like, actually it's probably DeAndre Carter, even though you don't know who you don't even know who DeAndre Carter is. He's probably the smash on Thursday. I haven't looked at pricing, but if Keenan doesn't play, he's going to play the slot and probably just going to smash.
Yeah, I can't wait for that game. There's the Minnesota game with the Eagles on Monday night. Another time that they're making me stay.
Dude, how good did they look? We didn't talk about them, but how good did the Vikings? I mean, Justin Jefferson is just silly. If you make Jair Alexander look like that, buddy, he's good.
He's too good. Like we were having fun in Discord about Justin Jefferson because Hacker was making fun of me over it. He's like, he doesn't have 50-point upside. He already has 46 in the first half, and I was like, doesn't sound like 50 to me. Doesn't sound like he hit 50. That's all I'm gonna say. No, but Justin Jefferson, I never said that he was a bad player. That was never the thesis of what I was talking about. Justin Jefferson is a bad man, and he proved it again. I mean, to me, there's two clear. I mean, Cooper Kupp is who Cooper Kupp is, but like in terms of like absolute raw studs at the position, it's Jefferson, it's Chase, and then there's a tier break, right?
They're so good. They are so good.
It's just,
those two
just
dudes.
Unreal.
It's going to be really fun for a long time with some of those young wide receivers, man. I mean, also think about, we're not the first people to say this. Jefferson, Chase, and Joe Burrow on the same college offense, and the corpse of it surely changes your outlook on Terrace Marshall when you realize he was the beneficiary of playing with the best two wide receivers in the NFL and top 8 quarterback or something like that. Like, I mean, God, that offense. Also, last thing, because now I'm on this stupid LSU. Do you see the Ed Orgeron quote or whatever that, so Ed Orgeron was the coach of that LSU team, won a national championship, tanked the program. He's he prefers to party than coach football. And I think it was Barstool or something like that. He did an interview and they were like asking him about when he got fired. And he's like, yeah, they called me and they said, I think we're going to buy you out. And so you're going to get about 17 million. I think it was $17 million buyout. And we're going to move on from you. And he was like, all right, when do I need to be out of my office?
He said, which door do you want me to leave out of? I was like,
I mean, good for him. That dude's loving life. Like that's good for him for and not necessarily good for him for his like competitive spirit, but I mean, fuck, dude, we only get to live for so long and he's getting old. Like who gives a shit? Enjoy yourself.
I got a message from one of our VPs last week and I was hoping that I was getting a $17 million buyout. Right. But it was like, hey, we want you to do more things. And I was like, oh, just buy me out. No, I mean, I love doing this stuff. But yeah, a $17 million buyout. How are you not going to take that?
Yeah. Jair played zone against GA. Go Google or look on Twitter at when he covered him in man the one time. Jair looks like me trying to cover an NFL wide receiver against Jefferson. There's a good clip going around.
He's so smooth. Like he's just like, it's just unreal. Like Chase is just dominant. Yes. And Jefferson is
they're different. They're kind of like opposites actually in the way they play the game.
But like to the peak of each style.
Yes.
Like, yep. Like it's just you don't see it too often the way that these guys are playing football, and they're fun to watch. And the Bengals, the Higgins thing was sad. Hopefully he's back this week, but even if he's not, Chase is just the dude. He's just the dude. Like
so good. He was smashing before. He was smashing before T got hurt. Obviously, it helped, but he was smashing anyway.
All right, well, that's gonna do it for us. We'll shoot Gretsch a DM or we'll hit him up on the bat phone and see if he wants to join us next Tuesday after bringing him up a few times on the show this week if he's available. For Erik Beimfohr and myself, this was the Spike Week Football Show. We will catch you next Tuesday. Peace.